Hi, HR Nation, and welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives of the world's leading global brands. Today, we have a special guest on the show. We're joined by Beverly Kaye, who's an international speaker, thought leader, and author of the best-selling book, Love 'Em or Lose 'Em, Getting Good People to Stay, which has sold over 800,000 copies globally. We're now on the 6th edition, which puts new emphasis on diversity and inclusion's direct connection to retention and engagement. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I am fine, thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Nice to be with you.
Yeah, hopefully it's not as cold as it is in Texas where you are, because I'm hearing some.
I'm in LA.
Is it nice and hot there?
I'm in LA and it is a beautiful sunny 70 degrees.
It's so strange how you're in you're in America and you got Texas where, there's a million people without electricity who are freezing.
Right.
And where you are, it's a nice hot sunny day. That's just the scale of the country.
Thank heavens. Right.
Yeah. Although it comes and goes, right? Because you have the wildfires and everything else. So there's,
and earthquakes, right?
Earthquake. I think we really get off. We always complain about the weather here in the UK, but I think we need to stop complaining, don't we? Because we just get a little bit of rain and we complain. So I think we've got it good.
Right.
But how are you? How have you been? How are things?
I'm good. I am excited about the launch of the new book. And it is, I am falling in love again with my own book.
For the 6th time.
I mean, and you know why? I'm applying each of the Love 'Em practices to myself personally. So I'm trying to do more. Even more of what I preach. I mean, I do it in my office and with my team, but as an individual, I'm not sure I do it all the time. So, and I'm falling in love with the word love and how important it is, especially now.
Now more than ever.
Days, at these times. And it's a great word. So, here's to love.
Here's the love. Well, we'll get to that part of the love part, which is also interesting. What was just kind of take us back for a second, the people that have just coming across your work for the first time. What was the inspiration behind this work and writing this book?
So actually, the inspiration was in the late 90s. McKinsey published a book called The War for Talent. And he had done a big study about why people leave. And they said people don't leave organizations. They do leave managers. And everybody picked up that line and was spouting it. And nobody was saying to the manager, well, here's how to keep your people. So it gave my co-author Sharon and I an idea that we should talk about the how-tos of retention and engagement. And that's what led us to be interested in the study. And it led us to ask 20,000 people the question, not why do you go, but why do you stay? And that was like the magic question that got us all the data that led to the book.
So interesting, because for far too long we do ask the opposite question, right? Why did you leave? But we take for granted the people that stay. That's a really good point. Like I need to sit down and ask my team that question.
Right.
Why do you stay? Because that's even more insightful, isn't it?
Yes. And when when someone comes in to quit their job, the question managers usually say is, what can I do to keep you? And then it's too late often.
Mm-hmm.
I think the question, what can I do to keep you? It's in the first chapter in the book, and that's the one that we have to ask.
How often do we ask that, and in what setting?
I think we ask, why do you stay, rarely? And you know why rarely? Because, I faced many, many thousands of managers in the speeches and the workshops that my company does. But when a manager says, what can I do to keep you? They're worried that the answer will be more money, higher pay, or that other job. And the manager then thinks, well, I have to say, no, that's not possible. And that is wrong. What the manager has to say is, I can't deliver on that. What else is important to you? And I always say to an audience, if a manager asks what else 4 times, they will get something that they have control over.
Interesting.
So you shouldn't be afraid to ask.
And if you don't ask, you're probably going to lose them anyway.
Exactly.
So rather than being afraid of asking and what you're going to hear, then, it's the same reason why many managers and leaders don't ask the question. I think it's changed a lot since the pandemic of how are you? Because they're worried about the answer they're going to get, or being vulnerable with someone. They're worried that, I don't have the answer and I can't help them with their, for example, their mental health. You don't have to have the answers. No one expects you to be a psychologist. But it's in the asking and saying, what else can I help you with? What can I, and you keep, I think that's a great way of saying it, to keep asking what, I can't do that, but what can I help you with? Or I can signpost you somewhere to someone or something that can help you.
Exactly. And it's like a puzzle. If you ask that what else question and you tell the truth, I can't do that. It sends a message that I value you. You're important to my team. I really want to keep you. And it may be that that person is not a fit on your team, but is a fit somewhere else in the enterprise. So I'm a big believer in managers saving talent for their enterprise, if not for themselves.
Mm-hmm. It took me, I'll be honest, it took me a while to get over that. When I first became a manager, I wanted to keep all my talent with me, right? Because I put so much time and energy, and I realized that I was doing them a disservice, and myself a disservice by doing that. And it took a while for me to grow and develop to the point of that.
And sometimes we love them and we lose them.
Yeah. Hence,
that's just the way it is.
Exactly.
But I'll add, if you lose them, I talk about elegant exits and respectful returns. And if you lose them elegantly, like if you say, let me know how you're doing. I'd love to hear from you. I'm so sorry we're losing you. That's a great message for me to leave with.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it doesn't work out over there.
Mm-hmm.
And the grass isn't greener. The big word now is boomerang employee. That they leave you and they come back. And in the old days, the door was locked. Mm-hmm. You had the nerve to leave us. We're not letting you back.
Yeah, it's so. I can tell you the amount of CHR, like HR executives, CHROs that I speak to every day, and I always say, "How did you get that new role?" Oh, it's a former colleague I work with. It's my former boss who's now the CEO over here. Or this is 90% of the time is that. Like whenever I ask how they got this job, it's normally for a previous employee, a friend, a colleague. And at the time it may not have worked out, but those relationships, as you said, the boomerang effect came back around as well. So it's super important. And you may not see the value in it at the time, and it may not feel nice because it doesn't always feel good. I can tell you losing some of my best talent doesn't feel great, but you have to have that perspective as well and value that relationship. With such a kind of wealth of knowledge out there, this is a sixth edition of your book. For people that aren't aware, I think, was it 20 years ago?
20 years.
20 years ago. Why is the book still so hot and so popular after 20 years?
I'm shocked. And not just be good to your people, value them, etc. It's here's how.
Here's how. I think that's the part.
This question. Do this. And there's so much generic words out there I've always been a human capital kind of girl. My husband is a rocket scientist. For him, it doesn't come easy, the how are you doing question. Because what do I say next?
Yeah.
So one of the things I'm going to make available to your listeners is 26 ways to say, how are you doing to your remote employees.
Amazing.
And is everybody who performs a service that you want to keep in your enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
And stay means don't just stay engaged, stay turned on, stay tuned in. And so in those 4 words, in a way, is the whole book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I should have had empty pages in between.
Yeah. I think something that people don't realize, though, but that 20 years ago, when you released a book with love in a title to the business community, that must have been quite disruptive at the time.
Yeah. And the publisher said, can't you find another word? And
of course they did.
And we tried. But no, and we say in our workshops, in our training, use any word you want. But love has the most different definitions. It could be notice them, recognize them. It could be say hello to them in the morning.
It's not as powerful, though.
It's got so many different definitions.
Mm-hmm.
So if love isn't comfortable, then don't use it.
Yeah.
But it is the best word.
Yeah.
And we're sticking to it.
What's new in this new 6th edition?
The diversity and inclusion effort has always been around. I mean, always. Called different things, and our publisher said, I want you to show how engagement and inclusion are connected. And we did some interesting research. We gave a number of diversity thought leaders our list of 26 practices, because the book is arranged according to the alphabet to make it easy. And we said, which 5 most support inclusion or belonging? And we thought, well, great research, we'll get the big 5 out of 26. And everybody had a different 5. And what it said to me is everybody has their own definition of belonging or inclusion. And so really the engagement practices really do support inclusion. And, but I'm not a diversity inclusion specialist, but I do know engagement. I do know retention, and I do know development, which is one of the most important things to keeping good people. Because every new employee, every long-term employee is thinking, am I growing? And if I'm not growing, I'm going to look elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super interesting the point that you made, though, that there's no one size fits all, and that everyone came back with different answers. It's
right.
Very interesting. I'm not surprised, but given the way you've outlined it, but I can imagine for yourself, it was quite surprising when you got those first 3 replies back. Like, wait a minute, there's no way of doing it. How have you seen the shift then in the virtual environment? Because in the past we spoke about what are the keys to making a positive work environment, but now the work environment is our home,
right.
Our home, or a Zoom call, or do you think the principles that you've outlined in the book and the practices still apply?
I think not only do they apply, but I would say their importance is even more magnified. And, it's interesting about Zoom is that I really get to look at you, and your surrounding and ask you some questions. And it's not telephone. It is face to face. And it is taking in your space. One of the S in the book is for space. And it's, are you aware of the space your people need to do their best work? Now, for many people, space is home.
Mm-hmm.
And space is home with kids, and space is home with other pressures. So I think the more the manager recognizes, and I have something in the book that says, don't just recognize, that's the first step, but recognize, verbalize. You look like today is a really stressful day. Recognize, verbalize, and then mobilize. Maybe it's okay with me if you miss the staff meeting, because I can see you've got a lot of pressure right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I try in all my work to be very practical and to say things like recognize, verbalize, mobilize.
Yeah.
That a busy manager, what did she say about that?
Yeah, it's
And
something simple as well to remember.
Right.
Yeah, because I remember when I first became a manager, I was reading so much and I was overwhelmed with information, and most of it was like theory, and just
Right.
having some practical questions and
Right.
processes to follow would have helped me so much back then. Clearly, I missed your book. I wish I did come across it back then. It'd been very helpful. Obviously, we're not going to go through the entire book. What are some of the practices that you share, the practical examples that we can share with our listeners now out of the book that you think are most impactful? The feedback that you've gotten from leaders over the years. They said, look, Beverly, these are the things that I took away from the book, these practices that really had the most impact on me and my team. What are they?
Right. Well, in the learning and training that we do, it's too much to talk about all 26. So we divide them into clusters of letters. And one cluster is development. And we say that a talent-focused leader grows his people. The second, and there's a cluster of letters there, the second is relationships. And we say a talent-focused leader really works to build a relationship. And there's a cluster of letters there. And the third is culture. And we say a talent-focused leader builds a culture that people want to come to. And when we do in-depth surveys, I'll tell you, the lowest cluster is always development. Because I really think people come to work to learn and to grow. And if they're not doing it on the job, they're going to look for that, side hustle to get the passion met. So the career chapter, the goals chapter, the information chapter, those are all critical.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very it's like, what matters to you? In fact, here's an idea for all your readers or watchers. Get the book. Thank you. Get the book. Open up to the table of contents that has the 26 love 'em practices. Show the 26 table of contents to your employee and say, which 3 of these do you wish I would do more?
Oh, wow. That's being very vulnerable.
Like, bingo. Don't even read the rest of the book. Just read those 3 chapters and see what in those 3 chapters you can do. And it could be that easy. And I know how busy managers are. But wouldn't it be cool if when you were in an organization, your manager said, what could I do more of? Because I want to keep you. I think, and it could be a 10-minute conversation.
we see what I love about you. You just, made it so simple. Because I would read that book and go, wow, now there's 26 things I need to do. I don't have the time to do all of them, and I'll become overwhelmed, and then perhaps I won't get around to doing anything at all. Whereas I love that of just, pinpoint, and don't even choose yourself. Don't, because we always assume we know which ones, and that's probably one of the baddest habits that I've developed as a manager. We assume we know how people are feeling. We assume we know the problem, rather than actually asking the question. And we're always shocked when we see our review, when we see our review at the end of the year and go, wow, I didn't know that I was, rated this or that.
And we have a big statement in the book that says, don't do that. Don't assume.
Never assume.
Unless the way you assume, you could say, I think you're most interested in these three. Am I on? Am I right? Etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about leadership styles? Because you mentioned the components of style in the book that breed that breed loyalty. What are those?
There's a number of them, but there's one that jumped out at us in our research. So in the style category, remember it's alphabetical. J is for jerk. Don't be one. And when we came to the publisher and said, we want the J chapter to be for jerk, he didn't think it was a good idea, and he said, can't you think of, again, another word? And we said, we have to write a jerk chapter, because here's what we did. We took an exit interview where the person said, here's why I'm leaving. And we found the person in their next company. And we went in with the exit interview and we said, here's what you said. Is that really why you left? And many of them said, no, I left because my boss was a jerk. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't stand it anymore. And then, of course, as good researchers, we said, well, what do you mean by the word jerk? And they gave us like 55 jerkatudinal characteristics.
And you outline them in the book.
They're outlined, right. And in our training, we will say to managers, in the way we'll get them into it, we'll say, look at these 50. Has a manager ever been a jerk to you? And they, yes. And what did it do to your ability to do the job? And then I might have the freedom to say, now, how are you being a jerk? Mm. And are you willing to check that out?
It's a good way of positioning it as well, right? Because you're not going fully in. How have you been a jerk? They can visualize it, they can see it, how they've experienced it personally, and then they can reflect. Oh, actually, perhaps I've been like that in a particular situation. Well, that's something we can do with our teams right now, very easily. It's a very practical thing to sit down with a team and ask those questions. I
want to know from the people who are supporting you.
How have you been a jerk?
How is Chris a jerk?
Adam, don't answer that question.
That's your homework.
That's my homework, yeah. Adam's got a big list, I think. That's the problem. So we'll have to write a whole new book on that. What are some of the other practical examples in the book?
So, the D for dignity is a big one. And especially if you look at that word through diversity and inclusion glasses. And the subtitle of that chapter is Show Respect. And maybe that's a real big neon, show respect, because that word means something different to everybody. Mm-hmm. I feel disrespected if I send an email to someone or call and they never return the call or the email, even though I know how busy that person might be. So everybody has their own code for, do I feel respected?
How do you? That's also quite a hard one to approach, though. How do you approach that one? again, is it simply sitting down and asking the question up
I
front?
think
Yeah.
that's part of it. That's part of it. And part of it, I think for a manager is my saying, do you feel respected? And how do you know your team respects you? How do they show it? How do you know your boss and your boss's boss? Because it's not just respected like good job, you're a good writer,
Exactly. Yeah.
but it's all those, those other ways.
Wow. So you would say to your manager, do you feel respected? Is that the right
Yeah,
question to ask? Wow.
yeah.
I can't even
And,
imagine asking my previous managers that question.
no, right,
I'm really, really intrigued just thinking about what they would have said if I would have
right.
asked them.
And that's why we have 26 chapters, because some of them you'd say, no, 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 I'm not going to that one now.
But there's probably there's times, and there's probably a time and a place as well for each
Absolutely.
of these. As you said, you would never ask these too often. It would become inauthentic. It would become forced.
Right.
It would actually
Right.
it would probably have the opposite effect.
Right.
It's the kind of like the whole good job, and the more you keep, it's great to say to someone good job, but sometimes it feels, or just people asking how are you, but they don't really mean it. It's just like a
Right.
how are you? How are you is now just like a conversation starter,
Right.
as opposed to how are you feeling.
Yes, that's different. You're
That
right.
changes.
You're right.
Just saying how are you feeling changes completely.
You're right. And usually the person might say, well, not so good today. And the manager goes, well, let me ask another question.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as they hear that, they go, oh, I don't want to go down that route. And
Right.
yeah, they're too worried about it. Yeah, it's interesting because I think, again, back to what we said before, is people are afraid of getting the answer.
Right.
They're afraid of actually the person replying with something. Go on,
In the Love 'Em book, we give a lot of different questions a manager could ask. And many times in our seminars and workshops, we'll have someone say, if I asked that question, my employee would say, what course did you go to? Or what book did you just read? And because it's not me. And I say, well, a great answer is, I did read a book or I did take a course because I really want to learn how to better manage my people, and admit it.
What a great response that
Again,
is.
truth, right?
That's a great response. Yeah, just of course I do, because I'm invested in being the best people leader I can.
Exactly.
And I can imagine the surprise on that employee's face.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow. Yes, I did read a book.
Here it is on page 153.
Yeah, I've done that with my team in the past. I've brought in the book with me.
Yep.
And I've shown them the book and said, look, this is the bit, and let's make this part of our meetings and do that.
Right.
I definitely need to practice what I preach more now, because the balance between building a company and managing time with a team is something I continue to struggle with. It's a fine balance between the two. It's maybe more complicated and more difficult in a startup where it's limited resources and stuff like that. But it's really difficult, but super important.
You gave me an idea. A neat thing to do for the manager would say, take this book and bring it back with a bookmark, on the page that you said, whoa, that would be a great conversation for me to have. And I'll look at your 3 bookmarks and we'll have that conversation.
That'd be great. Yeah.
So.
That'd be cool. All right, I'm gonna do it now. We'll do part two. What are the main things that managers come to you that the biggest challenge that they struggle, things that they struggle with over the years? You spoke to thousands and thousands of managers. What are the main things that they come time and time again that they keep coming back and saying, these are the things I'm really struggling. Beverly, help me.
Across the board, I have so much pressure to do my job. I feel like it's a heavy load on my shoulders. I want to take time to talk to my people. I want to take time to stop and listen. And then I end up working into the night.
You're describing me right now, by the way, like
Yeah,
to a T.
right,
Everything you're
right,
describing is literally me, and I get
right,
really upset at myself for
right,
not taking the time to meet with the team. And I
right,
always, the intention's always there, and it's just like, oh, it's just always
right.
something, and it becomes just, yeah, you literally described me perfectly right there and then. Yeah.
And maybe we have to define take the time.
Mm.
Maybe the time is much less than you think.
Mm-hmm.
And, like in my office, when someone does a great job, sometimes uh, I just write across, great job. I like this sentence. See, it's different than great job.
Mm-hmm.
I like at that 2 seconds, but it's hard because we're all under pressure and we are all overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And even saying to an employee, I've been feeling really overwhelmed lately. I haven't taken time to even say hello, even to say, what was the best part of last week for you? Just tell me, you know, um, wow, he asked me what was the what? And then that's a great conversation.
Mm-hmm. I think part of the culprit, and I'm sure I'd love to hear people's thoughts and your own listening, is that the way I engaged in the past has changed. So when everyone was in the office and we were together, those natural cues for me to walk over to an employee and say, great job on that deal, or great job on that piece of content, or it was just in the flow of my day. And that happened all the time.
Right,
But now most of my employees are virtual.
right,
Those natural cues are not there.
right,
So
right,
so I think I need to be more intentional, or
right. You
whether
do.
it's
And
setting reminders, whatever it may be. I don't want it to feel forced either. Because I don't want it to feel like,
right,
it's a job to do that. But those natural cues that I've built up over the years of saying to my sales team, congratulate on that deal, or whatever it may be,
right,
they're not there anymore
right,
because
right.
they're in this
I,
virtual
I
environment.
love the word you just used, intentional.
Mm.
Maybe we need a sign that says, have you been intentionally loving today?
Yeah, it would help.
Right,
Because
right,
sometimes we forget, because then was otherwise what happens is I get onto those Zoom calls and I just go into autopilot mode of what's the next project or what's the thing we're working on, and you just forget about that.
right,
I remember speaking to James, who's one of our employees. If you're listening, hi James. And I realized that he delivered some incredible work for us, one of our projects. And I realized that although I was super excited and grateful, I hadn't expressed that. So I jumped on a call with him, and it wasn't even my Zoom call. It was actually my co-founder's Zoom call, and I kind of gate crashed it and said, by the way, James, and only because it just came into my mind. I know it's been a month since that project, but I really want to let you know you've done such an amazing job. We couldn't have done it without you. That took a whole month for me to do that because I just didn't see him until
right,
that
right,
point. And I could see how much it meant to him
right,
to be like, oh wow, like I didn't even think you even noticed,
right.
that I even did all of that hard work and went above and beyond. But I did, but it just didn't have the show. Yeah, so I'm sort of still learning what that looks like and how to navigate that, but becoming more
Some
intentional.
managers say, I didn't have to compliment him. He knows what a good job he's
No,
doing.
no. Yeah,
Not
that used to mean more to me when I was my whole background was sales, and in the beginning it was about money. You're in sales, so you probably a lot of time it is about money because you're making commission. But when I got more senior and more experienced, for me, what meant the most was my manager coming over and shaking my hand,
right,
or the pat on the back in front of the team, and just feeling valued. It
right,
was no longer, yes, it was great. I got the sale and I made commission, but it was always that email from the CEO, Andy, if you're listening right now, just that email from the CEO saying well done, or just congratulating from the team, and everyone congratulating each other on the great what we did. That meant more than the financial, the money in the bank account.
Right.
So yeah, it's super important we find new ways of keeping that in this as we're so just distributed as well. So yeah, set some reminders in the calendar to be able to do that as well. What keeps you motivated?
Me?
Yeah, like you've 6th edition. You've been doing this. I don't want to age you. I don't want to age you, right? I don't want to do it for so long. How do you keep disrupting Beverly?
I like to say I'm very opportunity minded, where I think a lot of people are opportunity blinded. So every Zoom call, I'm interested in the person and I'm interested in my own learning. There's so much learning. Like I loved our first call when I asked you how you got to be where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And you told me you were a professional break dancer.
Yeah.
I said, and it just it's like being an archaeologist. What can I learn about that person?
What can I uncover?
Who does he have to know that I know?
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm very connection oriented.
Yeah.
But I also feel overwhelmed. I mean, this is on my desk. And I think I will never retire, probably.
Yeah. Have you tried?
No.
You haven't even attempted. No.
No.
Why retire? Because listen, most people retire from jobs that they hate.
Right.
And then they spend the rest of their life doing their hobbies and the things that they love. You're doing both.
In a way, yeah.
At the same time, you love what you do. So others will be, somewhat what they say retired playing golf on the golf course. Right. You're doing the work that changes lives around the world and that you love.
And so right above my office door, it says, love what you do and do what you love.
Exactly. Yeah, I can see it there. Yeah. Yes. I'm sure that's a constant reminder as you leave and enter that room every day to be able to do that. But look, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm really excited for everyone to grab a copy of the book. Super practical, which is what I love as well. For me, I have a lot of authors and people I speak to, and they do some incredible work. But what I love about your work is just so practical, and the questions are there, the processes, the practices. It doesn't, these aren't things that cost thousands of pounds to implement, but they really do change lives and for both managers and employees. So keep up the amazing work. I know you've got so much energy. It inspires me. I've got no excuse. On my end, before I let you go, if there's sort of a parting piece of advice that you'd give to our listeners, what would that be? And then where can they connect with you to learn more about your work and grab a copy of the book?
So my website is easy. It's BevKaye.com. The book is right now on Amazon. It's in pre-pub. So you can order it, but you won't get it until the first week in March. Mm-hmm. And, my parting words are, I don't know, maybe do unto others as you wish someone else would do unto you. Mm-hmm. The golden rule.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, listen, for everyone listening, make sure you go grab a copy of the book. If you're listening right now, or you're listening on LinkedIn Live or YouTube, wherever you're listening, click on the link in the description and there'll be a link. Click on that link and that'll be a link to grab a copy of the book and to check out more of Beverly's work. Apart from that, I wish you all the best. It's been a pleasure as always. And I look forward to seeing you again soon, okay?
Thank you. Take care.